Veltar's 6 delicate fingers trembled as he adjusted the communication array for the 3rd time that morning. The Etherian officer had been monitoring deep space signals for over 2 cycles, and nothing had prepared him for what now filled his organic headset. Static crackled through the bioneural interface, but beneath the interference, something terrible was trying to break through. The monitoring station Harmony's echo floated peacefully in the void between star systems, its living walls pulsing with gentle bioluminescence. Around Veltar, other Etherian technicians worked in quiet harmony, their movements flowing like water as they tended to the various communication networks that connected the peaceful species of the Galactic Council. A sharp burst of transmission cut through the static, and Veltar's large dark eyes widened in alarm. The signal was coming from the Kepler 442 system, where the gentle Silathi had just established their newest colony world. But this was not the usual update about crop yields or weather patterns. Please, anyone. They came from nowhere. The voice was clearly Silathi, but filled with a terror that Veltar had never heard from that peaceful species. They are hunting us. Hunting us for sport. Children are... The transmission cut to static again, leaving Veltar staring at his console in shock. His breathing quickened, and the bioluminescent patches on his translucent skin began to pulse rapidly. The Silathi were herbivores, as peaceful as flower petals in the wind. They had no weapons, no military, no concept of violence beyond what they read in ancient historical texts. Veltar reached out with one trembling hand and activated the emergency protocol. Within moments, Senior Communications Director Arya of the Gentle Waters appeared at his station, her flowing robes rustling softly. "What is the nature of the emergency, young Veltar?" she asked, her voice carrying the musical quality that all Etherians possessed. Instead of answering, Veltar played back the transmission. As the terrified voice of the Silathi colonist filled the air, Arya's elegant features grew pale. Her own bioluminescent patches began to dim with distress. "There must be some mistake," she whispered. "Who would attack the Silathi? They have no enemies. They grow flowers and write poetry." Another transmission burst through the static, this one even more desperate. "They are tall, covered in armor that looks like black metal. They carry weapons that tear through our buildings like paper. They seem to enjoy our fear. Please, someone help us." The transmission was followed by sounds that made both Etherians step back from the console, sounds that did not belong in their peaceful galaxy. The roar of weapons, the crash of falling structures, and underneath it all, something that might have been laughter. Arya activated her personal communicator with shaking hands. "This is Senior Director Arya of the Gentle Waters. I need an immediate connection to the Emergency Council Session Protocol." Within an hour, representatives from dozens of species had gathered in the council chambers. The great dome-shaped room filled with the soft sounds of concerned voices as beings of every shape and size discussed the impossible situation. The Quillan delegates' fur stood on end with anxiety. The crystalline shard singers hummed in worried harmonies. Even the ancient tree speakers had sent avatars from their forest worlds. Council Speaker Zafani, a tall, graceful being from the aquatic world of Tidal Song, called for order with a gentle wave of her webbed hand. Her blue-green skin shimmered with patterns of distress as she addressed the assembly. "Fellow beings of peace," she began, her voice carrying the weight of authority. "We have received disturbing transmissions from the Silathi colony in the Kepler 442 system. It appears they are under attack by an unknown aggressive species." Murmurs of shock rippled through the chamber. The delegate from the mushroom people of Spore Dream spoke first. "Surely there has been some misunderstanding. Perhaps it is a natural disaster that the Silathi are misinterpreting." "The transmissions suggest otherwise," Zafani replied sadly. "The attackers appear to be sentient beings with advanced technology who are systematically hunting the colonists." The Quillan delegate's fur bristled further. "Then we must send a peacekeeping force immediately." A moment of uncomfortable silence filled the chamber. Everyone present knew the truth that no one wanted to speak aloud. The Galactic Council had no military force beyond symbolic peacekeepers. For thousands of years, the species of the galaxy had lived in harmony. They had forgotten how to fight because they had never needed to. "Our peacekeeping vessels are designed for mediation and rescue operations," admitted Admiral Softcurrent. "From the floating cities of Gas Giant Prime, they carry no weapons beyond basic defensive systems. We have never needed anything more." As the council debated, more transmissions continued to arrive from Kepler 442. Each one was more desperate than the last. The attackers seemed to be taking their time, prolonging the suffering of the colonists. They were not conquering the world quickly and efficiently. They were playing with their victims. The colony's population was 40,000 Silathi, reported the emergency coordinator. Our last confirmed. Transmission suggests that over half have already been eliminated. The word hung in the air like a poison cloud. Eliminated. The peaceful species of the galaxy did not even have proper words for what was happening to the Silathi. Hours passed as the council formed committees and subcommittees. They discussed diplomatic solutions, peaceful interventions, and humanitarian aid. But even as they talked, everyone knew that by the time any traditional council response could be organized, every Silathi on Kepler 442 would be dead. Junior Counselor Zephani's younger cousin, Tidal Voice, stood suddenly from her position in the observer section. Her youth made her words carry less weight, but her desperation gave them power. "There is one option we have not discussed," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The chamber fell silent. Zephani looked at her cousin with a mixture of affection and concern. "Speak, young Tidal Voice." "The Deathworlders," she said, and immediately the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. No one spoke for a long moment. The humans of Sol 3 were the galaxy's greatest mystery and greatest fear. They were the only known sapient species to evolve on a Class 12 death world, a planet so dangerous that most council species could not survive there for more than a few minutes. Yet somehow, impossibly, humans had not only survived, but thrived in that nightmare environment. When humanity had first made contact with the galaxy 50 years ago, the Council had been terrified. Here was a species that had evolved alongside predators that could crush starships, in environments that would kill most galactic citizens instantly. But to everyone's amazement, humans had proven to be remarkably peaceful. They traded fairly honored agreements and seemed genuinely interested in the arts and culture of other species. Still, everyone knew what humans were capable of. Their planet had forged them into something that the peaceful galaxy could barely comprehend. When they walked among other species, it was like watching barely contained lightning, trying to pretend it was a gentle breeze. "The humans have no obligation to help us," pointed out the Shardsinger delegate, his crystalline form chiming softly with worry. "We have kept them at arm's length for decades. We barely include them in council activities. They are our only hope," Tidal Voice replied firmly. "The Silathi are dying while we debate. Only the Deathworlders have the capability to respond to this kind of threat." Another desperate transmission crackled through the chamber's speakers. This time it was not a voice but pure terror, the sound of a Silathi child calling for its parent, followed by silence. Council Speaker Zephani closed her large, dark eyes and made the decision that would change the galaxy forever. "Open a priority channel to Sol 3, she commanded. "We are formally requesting military assistance from the human species." For the first time in galactic history, the civilized species were asking the Deathworlders for help. Admiral Sarah Chen was reviewing supply reports in her private quarters aboard the Indomitable Will when her communication system chimed with the emergency priority signal. She had not heard that particular sound in over 10 years of service, and it made her dark eyes snap to attention immediately. The holographic display showed an unfamiliar alien face, one of the Etherians from the Galactic Council. The being's bioluminescent patches were flashing in patterns that Chen's cultural training told her indicated extreme distress. "Admiral Chen of the human fleet," the alien began, its voice carrying musical undertones that made the universal translator work overtime. "I am Council Speaker Zephani. We are transmitting on emergency protocols to request immediate military assistance." Chen sat up straighter in her chair. In 50 years of human contact with the Galactic Council, they had never once asked for military help. The peaceful species of the galaxy made it very clear that they preferred to handle their own affairs without involving the violent humans. "What is the nature of the emergency, Council Speaker?" Chen asked, her voice carefully neutral. "An unknown aggressive species has attacked the Silathi colony in the Kepler 442 system. They appear to be systematically exterminating the population for sport. We have no military capability sufficient to respond to this threat." The words hit Chen like a physical blow. She had met Silathi delegates before, They were among the most peaceful beings in the galaxy, completely incapable of violence. The idea of someone hunting them for entertainment filled her with a cold rage that she carefully kept hidden. I understand. We will respond immediately. Please transmit all available data about the situation. Admiral, the alien said, and Chen could hear the desperation even through the translator. There are children involved. Understood, Chen replied, her voice hard as steel. We are already moving. The moment the transmission ended, Chen was on her feet and heading for the bridge. Her aide, Lieutenant Commander James Harrison, fell into step beside her as she strode through the corridors of the massive ship. Sir, emergency beacon to all human vessels in the sector? He asked. Negative, Chen replied. Emergency beacon to all human vessels, period. Every ship, every station, every outpost. This is a code red humanitarian crisis. Harrison's eyes widened slightly, but he immediately began entering the commands. A code red meant every human military vessel would drop whatever they were doing and respond. It also meant that civilian vessels with any defensive capability would be invited to volunteer. Within 30 minutes, Chen's staff had assembled in the main briefing room. Marine General Marcus Rodriguez sat across from her, his scarred hands folded on the table. Intelligence Director Dr. Yuki Tanaka was already working through the data from the Galactic Council, her fingers flying over her holographic displays. What do we know? Chen asked without preamble. The attackers are calling themselves Ravagers, Dr. Tanaka reported. Preliminary analysis suggests they are not from any known galactic species. Their technology appears to be organic-mechanical hybrid, which is beyond anything in the Council's databases. Their tactics? General Rodriguez asked. Brutal but sophisticated. They are not just killing, they are prolonging the suffering. This appears to be some kind of hunting expedition rather than a military conquest. Chen felt her jaw tighten. Population of the colony? 40,000 Salathi. Last confirmed transmission suggests maybe 15,000 still alive, but that was 6 hours ago. Distance to Kepler 442? 18 hours at maximum hyperspace speed. Then we leave in 1 hour, Chen decided. How many ships can we muster? Harrison looked up from his communication console, his expression slightly odd. Admiral, you need to see this. The main display lit up with a tactical overview of human space. Hundreds of blips were moving, all converging on their location. Ships from the Navy, the Marines, the Colonial Defense Forces, and the Merchant Marine. But there were also civilian vessels, mining ships, cargo haulers, even luxury yachts, all heading toward the rally point. The Blood and Glory Mercenary Company is offering their full fleet, Harrison reported. Captain Martinez says they will waive all fees for a rescue operation. The Martian Mining Consortium is sending their entire security fleet, added another aide. They are asking permission to retrofit their industrial equipment for combat use. Sir, Dr. Tanaka said quietly, the Peace and Love, that hippie commune ship from Alpha Centauri, just volunteered. They want to help with medical support. Chen watched the display as more and more ships appeared. Within hours, they had assembled the largest human military force in galactic history. Not because of orders from Earth, not because of political pressure, but because humans heard that children were being hunted for sport, and every single one of them wanted to do something about it. 217 military vessels, Harrison reported. 63 civilian ships with combat modifications. Estimated total personnel 400,000. General Rodriguez whistled softly. Ma'am, this is larger than the fleet that fought the Titan War. The difference is, Chen said grimly, this time we are all on the same side. As the human fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, reports continued to stream in from Kepler 442. The Ravagers seemed to be in no hurry to finish their hunt. They were keeping survivors alive, apparently enjoying the prolonged terror. Dr. Tanaka had been analyzing every piece of data they could gather about the attackers. Admiral, I am concerned about something. The energy signatures from their weapons suggest technology far in advance of anything the Galactic Council possesses. Are you saying we might be outgunned? Rodriguez asked. I am saying they might be expecting an easy fight like they got from the Salathi. They have never faced an opponent that fights back. Chen nodded. What do we know about their ships? Large organic-looking vessels with what appears to be biomechanical armor. They seem to rely on terror tactics and overwhelming firepower against defenseless targets. Weaknesses? Unknown. But Admiral, there is something else. The way they are hunting suggests they view this as recreation rather than warfare. They might not be prepared for organized resistance. Chen stood up and looked at the tactical display showing the human fleet. Ships that had been scattered across dozens of star systems were now moving in perfect formation toward the jump point. Humans from every colony, every background, every political faction, all united by one simple concept. Innocent people were being murdered, and that could not be allowed to stand. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced to her staff, "we are about to show these Ravagers something they have never seen before. They are used to hunting prey. Today they are going to learn what it feels like to be hunted." The fleet jumped to hyperspace as one, leaving behind a trail of twisted space-time that would be detected by every sensor in the sector. For the first time in galactic history, the Deathworlders were going to war not for conquest or territory, but for the simple principle that the strong should protect the weak. 18 hours later, they would arrive at Kepler 442 and forever change the balance of power in the galaxy. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the indomitable will as the stars stretched into lines around them. Behind her, the largest human fleet ever assembled raced through hyperspace toward a world where children were being hunted for sport. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," she broadcast to the entire fleet. "We are not going to Kepler 442 to fight a war. We are going to stop a slaughter. When we arrive, remember that every minute we delay means more innocent lives lost. We go in fast, we go in hard, and we bring every single survivor home." The acknowledgement signals came back from 200 ships, 400,000 humans, all speaking with one voice. "Understood, Admiral. Let's go save some people." The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, like an avalanche of metal and fury. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the indomitable will, watching the tactical displays as her sensors painted a picture of horror across the star system. The main colony world of New Harmony hung like a wounded jewel against the black of space. What should have been a peaceful blue-green sphere was now marked with angry red scars, where orbital bombardment had torn through the surface. Smoke plumes rose from burning cities, visible even from space. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Commander Harrison, his face pale as he stared at the readings. "The entire northern continent is on fire." But it was not just the planetary devastation that shocked the human fleet. Scattered throughout the system were ships unlike anything in the galactic databases. The Ravager vessels looked like they had been grown rather than built, their hulls flowing in organic curves that seemed to pulse with their own dark life. They were massive, each one easily 3 times the size of the largest human battleship. "Enemy vessel count?" Chen asked, her voice steady despite the rage building in her chest. 47 ships in system," reported the tactical officer. "They appear to be maintaining a patrol pattern around the planet. No defensive formations. They are not expecting resistance." Dr. Tanaka looked up from her analysis station. "Admiral, I am reading energy signatures from the planet's surface. There are still survivors down there, but the Ravager ground forces appear to be conducting systematic sweeps." "They are still hunting," General Rodriguez said grimly from his position at the Marine Command console. "They are taking their time with it." Chen studied the tactical display. The Ravager ships were indeed acting like they owned the system. They moved in lazy patterns, some of them actually drifting without power as if their crews were resting between hunting expeditions. It was clear they had never encountered organized resistance. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," she broadcast to the fleet. "We are splitting into 2 forces. Battle Group Alpha will engage the enemy fleet and establish space superiority. Battle Group Beta will prepare for immediate planetary assault. All civilian vessels are to remain at the jump point and prepare to receive survivors." The human fleet split smoothly into 2 formations. The heavier warships moved toward the Ravager fleet, while the assault transports and marine carriers began their approach to the planet. The precision of the maneuver was something the peaceful species of the galaxy had never seen before. Hundreds of ships moving as one coordinated force. The first Ravager ship to notice the incoming humans seemed almost confused by what it was seeing. Its organic hull pulsed with patterns of light that Dr. Tanaka interpreted as some kind of communication attempt. "They are trying to communicate with us," she reported. "The translation matrix is struggling, but it appears to be..." "Laughter? They think this is funny?" Rodriguez asked. "They seem to view us as more prey," Dr. Tanaka confirmed. "The transmission suggests they are pleased to have new hunting targets." Admiral Chen's expression could have frozen plasma. Signal all ships. Weapons free. Show them what happens when you hunt human children. The space battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. The Ravager ships, designed for terrorizing defenseless civilians, found themselves facing an opponent that had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of warfare. The aliens fired first, unleashing streams of energy that tore through space like liquid fire. But the human ships did not try to dodge or retreat. Instead, they accelerated directly into the attack, their heavy armor absorbing punishment that would have vaporized any Galactic Council vessel. Ravager weapons are designed for maximum terror effect. Dr. Tanaka shouted over the sound of impacts against their hull. They prioritize visible destruction over actual effectiveness. The human response was swift and brutal. Railgun rounds traveling at significant fractions of light speed punched through the organic hulls of the Ravager ships. Nuclear missiles, banned in most galactic conflicts for being too destructive, bloomed like deadly flowers across enemy formations. But it was not just the firepower that shocked the Ravagers. It was the tactics. Human ships worked in perfect coordination, using formations and strategies that the aliens had never encountered. They used sacrificial attacks, where smaller ships would deliberately take enemy fire to allow larger vessels to close for killing shots. Enemy ship Nightmare's edge is breaking apart, reported the tactical officer. The Terran Fury rammed it after taking critical damage. Chen nodded grimly. The captain of the Terran Fury had made the choice that every human understood, but no other galactic species could comprehend. When faced with the choice between personal survival and mission success, humans would choose the mission every time. Meanwhile, General Rodriguez was coordinating the planetary assault from his command center. First wave drops in 30 seconds. All units, remember your briefing. Priority 1 is survivor rescue. Priority 2 is intelligence gathering. Priority 3 is making these bastards pay. The human drop pods fell through the atmosphere of New Harmony like meteors of vengeance. Each pod contained 24 Marines in full combat armor, equipped with weapons and training that made them among the most dangerous infantry in the galaxy. Sergeant Maria Santos was in the first pod to hit the ground outside what had been the colony's main city. As the armored doors blew open, she led her squad out into a scene from a nightmare. The Silathi had built their city to blend with the natural environment, using living trees and flowing water as part of their architecture. Now that beauty was twisted into horror. Buildings lay shattered, their organic components dying and rotting. Bodies of the gentle aliens lay scattered in the streets, but there were signs that many had been taken alive. Movement, 2 clicks north, reported Corporal Jackson, scanning through his rifle scope. Large group of hostiles, looks like they have prisoners. Santos felt her jaw clench as she saw the scene through her shared tactical display. A group of towering figures in black armor were herding a cluster of Silathi survivors toward what looked like cages. The aliens moved with the casual confidence of predators who had never been challenged. All squads, this is Santos. We have confirmed survivor contact. Moving to intercept. The Ravagers never saw the humans coming. Santos and her Marines moved through the ruins of the city like ghosts, using every piece of cover and concealment to approach undetected. These aliens might be skilled at hunting terrified civilians, but they had no experience with opponents who were hunting them back. The firefight was brief and one-sided. The Ravagers' weapons were designed for terrorizing civilians, not fighting trained soldiers. Their armor, while impressive-looking, was not designed to stop military-grade ammunition. Within minutes, 12 Ravager hunters lay dead, and the Silathi prisoners were free. Elder Harmony singer Willow Voice was among the rescued survivors, her normally luminous skin dim with trauma and exhaustion. She looked up at Santos with large, tear-filled eyes. "You came," she whispered in her musical voice. "We called for help and you came." "That's what we do," Santos replied, helping the elderly Silathi to her feet. "Can you tell us where they are keeping the other survivors?" "There is a large facility to the east," Willow Voice said, pointing with a trembling hand. "They have thousands of our people there. They use it for their games." Santos felt her blood turn to ice. "Games? They release groups of our people and then hunt them. They compete to see who can cause the most terror before the kill." The sergeant activated her communication system. "Command, this is Santos. We have confirmation of a large prisoner facility, requesting immediate support for rescue operation." "Copy that, Santos," came General Rodriguez's voice. "All available units are being redirected to your position." We are going to end this right now. Above them, the space battle was turning decisively in humanity's favor. The Ravager ships, designed for terrorizing defenseless worlds, were no match for a fleet that had been forged in the crucible of humanity's violent history. But even as they died, the aliens seemed unable to comprehend what was happening to them. "They keep sending the same laughter signals," Dr. Tanaka reported. "I do not think they understand that they are losing." Admiral Chen watched another Ravager ship break apart under the combined fire of 3 human cruisers. They have never faced an opponent that fights back. They do not know how to respond to organized resistance. But the real shock came when the humans breached the Ravager prisoner facility on the planet's surface. What they found there would haunt even the battle-hardened Marines for the rest of their lives. The facility was not just a prison. It was an arena. The Ravagers had built a complex designed specifically for hunting games, complete with obstacles, traps, and viewing areas where the aliens could watch their victims run for their lives. General Rodriguez stood in the main arena, looking at the horror that surrounded him. Thousands of Selathi huddled in cells, their spirits broken by weeks of terror. But they were alive, and that was what mattered. "All units, this is Rodriguez. Begin immediate evacuation of all survivors. Medical teams, we need trauma specialists down here now." As the human fleet secured the system and began the rescue operations, one thing became clear to everyone involved. The galaxy had changed forever. The Age of Peace W. Colonel Marcus Wells crouched in the ruins of what had once been a Selathi meditation garden, studying the massive Ravager command ship through his enhanced binoculars. The vessel sat in the center of the former colony like a cancerous growth, its organic hull pulsing with veins of sickly light. Around it, smaller structures had been built, clearly temporary but disturbingly elaborate. "It looks like they were planning to stay here for a while," observed Lieutenant Sarah Kim, his intelligence officer, as she analyzed the enemy compound through her own equipment. "The Selathi were right about this being a hunting preserve," Wells replied grimly. "Look at those structures. They are not military installations. They are entertainment facilities." Through their scopes, they could see Ravager soldiers moving around the compound with the casual confidence of predators who had never been challenged. Some were working on what appeared to be viewing platforms. Others were tending to large cages that still held Selathi prisoners. Wells activated his communication system. "Command, this is Wells. The target is confirmed as the main Ravager facility. Heavy enemy presence, estimated 200 hostiles. We also have confirmed prisoner sightings." General Rodriguez's voice came back immediately. "Understood, Wells. Dr. Tanaka's analysis suggests that ship contains their navigation data. If we can capture it intact, we might be able to prevent future attacks on other worlds." "Sir, the risk to the prisoners—" "I know, Marcus. But if this is just the advance force of a larger invasion, we need that data. Can you do it?" Wells looked at the compound again, his tactical mind already working through the possibilities. The Ravagers had positioned themselves perfectly for watching their hunting games, but their defensive positions were poor. They had never needed to worry about being attacked. "Yes, sir. Give me 4 hours and every demo expert in the fleet." 2 hours later, Wells was briefing his assault team in the ruins of a Selathi library. The building's organic architecture had been designed to promote peace and learning, but now it served as a staging area for an attack that would determine the fate of thousands of innocent beings. "The target is the command ship in the center of the compound," he explained to the assembled Marines and Special Forces operators. "Intelligence suggests the ship's data core contains navigation information about Ravager space and their fleet movements. Secondary objective is prisoner rescue. Tertiary objective is prisoner rescue. Questions?" Sergeant Santos, still wearing the same armor she had worn during the first rescue operation, raised her hand. "Sir, what about the hostiles?" "What about them, Sergeant?" "Rules of engagement?" Wells looked at his soldiers, these men and women who had volunteered to risk their lives for beings they had never met, from a species they barely knew. "They have been hunting children for sport, Sergeant. I will leave the rules of engagement to your discretion." The assault began at dawn, Kepler 442's sun rising over a world that had been turned into a nightmare. Human forces attacked from 6 different directions simultaneously, using tactics that the Ravagers had never encountered and could not understand. The aliens had expected their prisoners to be rescued. They had even prepared for it, setting up kill zones and trap areas designed to maximize casualties among any rescue attempt. What they had not expected was an enemy that would walk straight through their traps without hesitation. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos led Alpha Team through the western approach, moving through a section of the compound that the Ravagers had turned into a maze designed to confuse and trap prey. But Santos and her Marines were not prey. They were predators, and they moved through the maze like they owned it. "Contact front," reported Corporal Jackson as the first Ravager soldiers appeared ahead of them. The aliens were tall, easily 8 feet in height and covered in armor that looked like it had been grown from some kind of black metal. They carried weapons that crackled with energy, and their movements showed the confidence of beings who had never lost a fight. The firefight lasted less than 30 seconds. The Ravagers were individually stronger and better armed than the humans, but they had never fought an enemy that coordinated their attacks. While one Marine drew their attention, 2 others flanked them. While they focused on the immediate threat, a sniper took them from long range. "Tango down," Jackson reported as the last Ravager fell. "These guys fight like amateurs." "They have never needed to learn how to fight," Santos replied as she checked the bodies. "They have been hunting defenseless civilians for so long they forgot what real combat looks like." Beta Team, led by Captain James Morrison, encountered heavier resistance as they approached the prisoner-holding areas. The Ravagers had concentrated their forces there, clearly planning to use the captives as shields if they were attacked. But Morrison had been a police negotiator before joining the military, and he understood something about hostage situations that the aliens did not. Sometimes the best way to save hostages was to make their captors too busy fighting for their lives to worry about killing prisoners. "Suppressing fire on the guard towers," he ordered. "Demo team, bring down that wall. Sniper team, I want those spotlight operators gone." The human assault was so coordinated and overwhelming that the Ravagers never had a chance to implement their contingency plans. They found themselves fighting for their lives against an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. Meanwhile, Colonel Wells led the main assault team directly at the command ship. The massive vessel sat in the center of the compound like an organic fortress, its hull bristling with weapon emplacements and sensor arrays. But Wells had noticed something during his reconnaissance that the aliens had missed. The ship had been designed for space combat and orbital bombardment. Its weapons were positioned to fire outward and downward, not to defend against ground assault. The Ravagers had never expected anyone to attack them on the ground. "Grappling hooks now," Wells ordered as his team reached the base of the ship. Within seconds, his Marines were climbing the organic hull like spiders, using equipment designed for boarding operations in space. The Ravagers inside the ship were completely unprepared for an assault from below. Their internal defenses were designed to repel boarding parties coming through airlocks, not soldiers climbing through hull breaches. Wells and his team carved their way through the ship's corridors with methodical precision. The organic passages pulsed with their own light, and the walls seemed to react to their presence with waves of bioluminescence. But the humans pressed forward, following the ship's energy signatures toward what had to be the command center. The final battle took place in a chamber that made every human who saw it stop in shock. The Ravagers had turned their command center into a trophy room, displaying the remains and artifacts of dozens of species they had hunted to extinction. Some of the displays showed beings that even the Galactic Council had never encountered. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Kim as she stared at a display case containing what appeared to be the preserved remains of some kind of crystalline beings. "How many worlds have they destroyed?" But Wells was focused on the command throne where the Ravager leader sat. The alien was even larger than its soldiers, its black armor decorated with what appeared to be bones from various species. It looked at the humans with something that might have been amusement. "More prey comes to play," it said in a voice like grinding metal, the universal translator struggling with the alien words. "We had wondered when the soft ones would send their warriors." "We are not here to play," Wells replied, his rifle trained on the alien leader's center of mass. "We are here to end this." The Ravager leader made a sound that might have been laughter. "End this? Small meat thing does not understand. We are the storm that devours stars. We are the hunger that consumes worlds. You cannot end us. Watch me," Wells said, and pulled the trigger. The battle for the command ship lasted another 20 minutes as the remaining Ravagers fought with desperate fury, but the outcome was never in doubt. These aliens had spent so long hunting defenseless prey that they had forgotten how to fight real soldiers. When the shooting stopped, Dr. Tanaka and her intelligence team moved into the ship to access the command systems. What they found there made everyone realize that the attack on Kepler 442 was just the beginning. "Admiral," Dr. Tanaka reported over the communication system, her voice tight with controlled fear. "You need to see this. The navigation data shows that this was just a scouting force. The main Ravager fleet is massive. Thousands of ships. How long until they arrive?" Admiral Chen asked. "The data suggests they were supposed to report back in 6 months. When they do not, the main fleet will come to investigate." Colonel Wells stood in the trophy room, looking at the evidence of dozens of extinct civilizations. Each display case represented an entire species that had been hunted to extinction for the entertainment of these monsters. "Then we have 6 months to prepare," he said grimly. 6 months to turn the galaxy into something these things have never encountered before. As the human forces completed their rescue operations and began evacuating the survivors, everyone understood that this victory was just the first battle in a war that would determine the fate of every peaceful species in the galaxy. The ravage is over, but you, the Great Council Chamber, had never seen anything like the gathering that took place 3 weeks after the liberation of Kepler 442. Representatives from every known species filled the dome-shaped room, but the atmosphere was completely different from the usual peaceful discussions that normally took place there. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the center of the chamber, still wearing her military uniform rather than the flowing robes that most speakers preferred. Beside her, elder harmony singer Willow Voice represented the rescued Salathi, her once bright skin still dim from trauma, but her voice strong with determination. Council Speaker Zafani called for order with trembling hands. The aquatic being's usual grace seemed shaken by the events of recent weeks. "Fellow beings," she began, "we gathered today to address a threat that none of us were prepared for. Admiral Chen, please present your findings." Chen activated the holographic display at the center of the chamber. The three-dimensional image showed a galaxy, but not the peaceful realm that the council members knew. This galaxy was marked with red zones, areas where the Ravager fleet had apparently operated before. "Based on data recovered from the enemy command ship," Chen began, "we have identified at least 47 star systems that show signs of Ravager attacks. In each case, the pattern is the same: total extermination of the native population, followed by the establishment of hunting preserves." Gasps echoed through the chamber as the implications became clear. The Quillen delegates first stood on end with horror. 47 systems? That represents millions of beings. Conservative estimates suggest over 2 billion sentient beings have been killed by this single Ravager scouting force, Dr. Tanaka added from her position beside the Admiral. And according to their navigation data, they represent less than 1% of the total Ravager fleet. The chamber fell silent as the mathematics sank in. If this small force had destroyed billions of lives, what could the main fleet do to the galaxy? "The main Ravager invasion fleet consists of approximately 4,000 ships," Chen continued. "They were expecting this scouting force to report back in 6 months. When they do not receive that report, they will come to investigate." Elder Willow Voice stepped forward, her musical voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "I speak for all Salathi when I say that we owe our lives to the human fleet. But more than that, we owe our hope for the future." She turned to address the assembled delegates directly. "For thousands of years, our species have lived in peace because we believed the galaxy was a safe place. We now know that we were wrong. There are monsters in the darkness between stars, and they see our peace as weakness." The Shard Singer delegate chimed softly with distress. "But what can we do? Our ships are not designed for warfare. Our people do not know how to fight." "That is exactly the problem," said a new voice from the observer section. General Rodriguez stepped forward, his scarred face serious. "With respect, delegates, you have forgotten that peace can only exist when good people are willing to fight for it." The Mushroom People delegate pulsed with uncertainty. "Are you suggesting that we abandon our principles of nonviolence?" "I am suggesting that your principles mean nothing if you are all dead," Rodriguez replied bluntly. "The Ravagers do not care about your philosophy. They see you as prey animals, nothing more." Council Speaker Zafani struggled to maintain order as worried conversations broke out across the chamber. Finally, she spoke the question that everyone was thinking. "What do you propose, Admiral Chen?" Chen looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives of dozens of peaceful species. These beings had built a civilization based on cooperation and harmony. But that civilization was about to face an enemy that understood only violence and domination. The Galactic Council must formally establish a military defense force, she said. Not peacekeepers, not mediators, but an actual military capable of defending Council space against hostile invasion. And who would command this military force? Asked the delegate from the floating cities of gas giant Prime. Humanity, Chen replied without hesitation. We are the only species in Council space with the experience and capability to organize an effective defense. The chamber erupted in concerned voices. The idea of giving military authority to the Deathworlders was almost as frightening to many species as the Ravager threat itself. But Elder Willow Voice raised her hand for silence. When the chamber quieted, she spoke with a voice that carried the weight of her people's suffering. I was there when the Ravagers came to our world. I saw what they did to our children. I heard their laughter as they hunted us for sport. She turned to face Admiral Chen. I also saw the human ships arrive. I saw soldiers risk their lives to save beings they had never met. I saw Admiral Chen make the decision to risk her entire fleet to rescue a few thousand survivors. The Salathi Elder's voice grew stronger. The Ravagers see us as prey because we cannot defend ourselves. But the humans see us as people worth protecting. I know which I prefer. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. Species after species stood to speak in favor of the human proposal. The reality was simple. They had no other choice. Finally, Council Speaker Zafani called for the formal vote. All in favor of establishing the Galactic Defense Force under human command. The vote was not unanimous, but it was overwhelming. For the first time in galactic history, the peaceful species of the Council were formally acknowledging that they needed warriors to protect their way of life. Admiral Chen found herself promoted to Supreme Commander of Galactic Defense within minutes of the vote. The weight of responsibility was staggering. She was now responsible for protecting dozens of species across hundreds of worlds. Supreme Commander, said the Etherian delegate, what do you need from us? Volunteers, Chen replied immediately. I need beings from every species willing to learn how to fight. I need engineers willing to design weapons. I need pilots willing to fly combat missions. Most importantly, I need people who understand that sometimes violence is the only way to protect what you love. Over the following months, the galaxy transformed in ways that would have been unimaginable before the Ravager attack. Human drill instructors appeared on peaceful worlds, teaching herbivorous aliens how to use weapons and fight in formation. Human engineers worked with Council scientists to retrofit civilian ships with weapons and armor. On the peaceful world of Harmony Falls, Lieutenant Colonel Santos found herself training a unit of Silathi volunteers. The gentle beings struggled with the concept of violence, but they had seen what happened to those who could not defend themselves. Remember, Santos told her students as they practiced with training weapons, you are not learning to become killers. You are learning to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Young Silathi Star Song of Morning raised her delicate hand. Instructor Santos, will we become like the Ravagers if we learn to fight? Santos knelt down to the alien's eye level. The difference between a warrior and a monster is not whether you can fight. It is what you choose to fight for. Meanwhile, human shipyards worked around the clock to build vessels designed specifically for defending peaceful worlds. The new ships were nothing like the elegant council vessels that prioritized comfort and efficiency. These were warships designed for one purpose: stopping anyone who threatened innocent life. Dr. Tanaka established intelligence networks throughout the galaxy, watching for any signs of Ravager activity. Long-range sensor stations were built in systems along the galactic rim, ready to provide early warning of the coming invasion. But perhaps the most important change was in the council chambers themselves. For the first time in thousands of years, the peaceful species were learning to think strategically about conflict. They were planning for war not because they wanted it, but because it was the only way to preserve peace. Supreme Commander Chen stood in her new command center on Luna Base, looking at displays that showed the defensive preparations taking place across the galaxy. Fortress worlds were being established. Fleet bases were under construction. Most importantly, the peaceful species were learning that they were worth fighting for. Status report, she asked her staff. Defense Fleet 1 is operational with 47 ships, reported her aide. Defense Fleet 2 will be ready in 3 months. Volunteer training programs are active on 37 worlds. And the Ravagers? Long-range sensors show no activity yet, but Dr. Tanaka estimates we have less than 4 months before they arrive. Chen nodded grimly. 4 months to prepare for a war that would determine whether civilization survived in the galaxy. It seemed impossible, but then again humanity had always specialized in doing impossible things. A communication alert sounded, and Elder Willow voice appeared on the main screen. The Salathi leader looked healthier now, her skin regaining some of its natural luminescence. "Supreme Commander," she said, "I wanted you to know that the 1st Salathi Combat Unit has completed training. Star Song of Morning asked me to give you a message." "What message?" "She said to tell the Supreme Commander that the Salathi remember who protected them when they could not protect themselves. When the Ravagers come, they will find that the prey has learned to bite back." Chen smiled, feeling a surge of hope. The peaceful species of the galaxy might not be natural warriors,